timelines, right? Or we can view that as one lifetime as a timeline. But we have our past lives as timelines. We have our genetic history as timelines. We have all of that that combines us to who we are. And so looking at that, and the clients that I work with, is really tapping into those specific timelines that relate to a pattern or behavior or a question that they come in with, whether that's health or relationship or career even, like, or purpose, like where is my purpose, and going back and finding out.
Awekenge, this is Mental Metals, hosted by Asego Toto.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Mental Matters. I'm your host, Asego Toto, and before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
To someone that is unaware what you are doing, or actually, let me rephrase my question. What is your goal? What type of message are you trying to convey to the audience?
Well, I think we're all under that umbrella of chaos and stress and trauma. And when I look at this, when I first started in my journey, my personal journey, addressing past history, addressing timelines was very important in clearing the chaos that a lot of us, or that I was carrying in my head for a period of time, trying to sort through my childhood. And what started to happen is more timelines came up, past lives came up in connection with relationships that I've had in this lifetime. And I really saw the value of timelines, not just the timelines that we say, from our womb experience till present day. That's various timelines, right? Or we can view that as one lifetime as a timeline. But we have our past lives as timelines. We have our genetic history as timelines. We have all of that that combines us to who we are. And so looking at that, and the clients that I work with, is really tapping into those specific timelines that relate to a pattern or behavior or a question that they come in with, whether that's health or relationship or career even, or purpose, like where is my purpose, and going back and finding out, is there any hindrances, not only in this lifetime, but any other place, clearing those, giving them tools to step forward. And then something changes in their life here, which is always fascinating for me. I love that piece of the work.
What do you mean by past lives? Because I keep on hearing that word when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to intuitive, intuition. What does that word mean to you? And
so past lives, it was not something that I grew up with. In fact, the exact opposite. This lifetime was this lifetime, and when you pass, and there really isn't anything moving forward. And past lives to me are these places that we have existed before, which actually it's hard for people to, when you deal with the quantum field, it's hard for people to understand that we think linear. And so past lives could be 1600s, 1500s, maybe prior to that, right? But they're all happening at the same time. That's the thing for people to understand, is that energy keeps going. So these past lives that we have experienced are also happening at the same time. So a past life is a soul journey. It's a soul journey of the energy, your soul within yourself, your spiritual place of who you are has been here many times. You know, I don't think anybody is new anymore and coming into the human realm of incarnation. So past lives are that. You know, we've existed here before. The interesting thing is, or the place that people get stuck is that if you had a past life where you've had trauma, you've had health issues, you've had unfinished business, as I call it, and you can bring it into this lifetime. And it's here to be cleared. You know, it's for us in this lifetime to clear as much as we can so that we can evolve in that way that everybody talks about, the shift that's coming. You know, the shift that's here. Humanity is in this evolutionary shift. But if we're caught in the past in some way, if we're caught in something that's hindering us from evolving, we have a pattern, we have anger towards somebody, we have a belief in something that doesn't really serve us, then it's about moving through it, understanding it, moving through it, healing it, and becoming more of who you can be in this life.
Mm, mm. Why is it so hard? You actually spoke about incarnation and having unfinished business, and it's quite hard for a person that is unaware of the information. It actually have a bit of glimpse what it actually means to in intuition in terms of what it actually means. So why would you say that in some way, why are we so unkeen on actually having that belief of actually saying that, of believing in reincarnation?
That's how we're raised, really, you know. Um, my experience in being raised very much disciplined in how my family viewed anything outside of, you know, this is just the way it is. Um, I was somewhat of a rebeller against that, and did my own thing at 19 and was kicked out of that religion. But I saw it took a long time. I mean, it's not something that people just go, "Oh," you know, unless you're raised with it, unless you have some kind of understanding of the background that this is the truth of, you know, what your belief system is and how you carry for that. But some people, it's not for them. Like, even when I work with clients, it usually doesn't show up of past life at all if they don't believe in it. And if I touch it and say, do you believe in incarnation? And they go, well, no, not really. Then the session doesn't go there because it's not about making them believe something that they can't or they don't want to, or it's not in their journey to, or it's just too painful to. It might challenge way too much for them.
Mm, mm, mm. And I have this belief that most of people have this perception of thinking that if you shove it in their amount for a certain time, a person would actually change their mind. Let's say that they believe in a certain thing, and I've seen it in terms of some quite of things that actually come out in today's generation when it comes to religion, when it comes to actually acceptance of these things of pronouns and when one is actually against that, of saying that I won't actually go what I won't do what you want me to say to do, and at some point we become a sort of villains of not actually going in line what they say. And I love the fact that you mentioned that you don't actually force upon people to believe it, but it also goes with a person that in if it if I want in a way of healing, if I want healing, I actually would want to learn about this thing. And again, another thing that I keep on actually telling myself is the fact that we're in a road of belief. Firstly, I learn about this certain thing. Is it good
Mhm.
for me? Should it actually go in line with my values? And I believe that's where they believe sparks of flip. Okay, now I have decided to believe in this thing that I in this thing, and I believe that it will help me. We have a phrase that we have actually is not a phrase within my culture only, and I was reading Lost Connections where where the author was saying that I think it is the placebo effect, whereas you tell yourself that this thing will heal me, even if it's sugar water and you drink it, and you will have this perception of saying that, oh flip, I've healed. Whereas it is all in your brain when it comes to belief. That's what I've seen. And I just want to speak a little bit about the power of the conscious. And within reading your bio on PodMatch, and you mentioned waving new insight can shift one's consciousness. Can you elaborate on the relationship between consciousness and
And personal.
growth, personal growth?
Yeah. So I think we're all on this planet in some way to gain consciousness, right? To be part of the bigger picture of who we want to become. Where are we heading? And consciousness to me exists both inside and outside. It is we are in one unified group. If you think of humanity as a unification, we have one energy body that we hopefully work in with all our separate ideas and opinions and choices and all of that. And the consciousness that is hopefully coming through, that is trying to come through, that has been coming through. It's not just something that's coming to us now. It is something that has been with us as we raise our consciousness. That exists in the field. It exists around us. It is part of us. It is our determining where we have come from, how we were raised, what is that belief systems, and like you mentioned, do they suit us? Are they really in our best interest? Do we really believe them, or have we been taught to believe them? So research comes from that. Going deeper into meditation comes from discerning of what really is yours and what might be someone else's that has told you this is the truth, right? And truth is very subjective. So people have their ideas. It's what you do with it. What do you do with your truth? Do you bombard other people with it? Do you tell them that they're wrong? Do you judge them? Do you, or do you allow them to be different than you are? And your consciousness is raising in one way and theirs is raising in another. And it's not right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just the fact of how we live out our human life.
How to use that consciousness to actually overcome those limitations, in terms of the limitation that you tell yourselves and the limitations of the belief that you grew up with?
Well, I think as we get older, we see, hopefully, that there's limitations that are in our life. We're not attracting the partner that we need. We're not in the career that we want. We know that there's something more about us that we're not totally aware or hooked into, right? So that's our purpose or our mission if we have one. And so we look at that as we question it. So our curiosity at the first level of consciousness is we question, what do we believe? Where am I right now? And why am I not getting what I thought that I was going to get or that I want? That leads us to investigating and discerning of, well, what do I think about that? What do I believe about that? Is that something my parents taught me? Is that something my church taught me? Is that something, we investigate. As humans, we are entitled to be curious. We're created to be curious. And so our consciousness arises from our curiosity. And then what are we going to do with that curiosity? Are we going to keep because it's safe? Because a lot of us keep rigidity, right, of what we believe because it feels safe. We don't have to go out. We don't have to test the waters. We don't have to read anything. we just keep it very safe. But it's not addressing the curiosity or the possibility. The possibilities of any and all of this has an element of truth in it. It may not be your truth, and it may not be something that you want to follow. But it's not about judging others because they may follow at 90% and you believe at 1%.
Interesting. And still on a conversation of consciousness, and you spoke in terms of we are here to reach consciousness, and I just want to actually intertwine those, combine those things, the consciousness and spirituality. And we always speak about the unconscious. Even Sigmund Freud spoke about the unconscious, whereas most of the time, whenever I hear about consciousness, actually not consciousness, about spirituality, I tend to go to unconsciousness. Can you explain to us why most of us actually have that perception in terms of whenever we speak about spirituality, we go to unconsciousness?
So what do you mean by you go to unconsciousness? Can you give me an example of that?
In terms of if one actually says that they are spiritual,
Yes.
that means that they are intertwined with they are intertwined with their unconscious, and they are running away from their consciousness. That's the reason why I actually had that thought of actually saying that. Oh, but everyone, you said that we are here to reach our consciousness, but when it comes to spirituality, people actually put a lot of emphasis on unconsciousness rather than their consciousness.
Yeah, well, it's hard. I think it's hard for some people to take the time. I mean, we are so chaotic right now and being absorbed in what's happening around us, the world conditions, our health, what's collapsing, what's not collapsing. It's all of that it takes that time and effort. So to go into a place of raising that consciousness, to go from the unconscious where you ask questions, you say, this isn't working for me. What will help to have it work for me? Where am I blocked? What do I need to do? And as a spiritual being, do I even believe that I have a guidance system? Do I believe in that? Do I tap into that? Do I understand it? It's that soul searching within, which is really in the subconscious because we all have it. It's not denied us. It's going in within yourself to ask the questions to become more conscious. Questions are really important. Questions that you ask others, but then you're going to get their opinion. They're going to get their belief systems. You're going to get all of that. But the questions that you go within, and a lot of that is what I try to teach people, is that meditation, there's another form of meditation that isn't about just calming your mind. Like that's the first step. Like just being able to calm your mind, being able to stay centered without anything coming in that says, oh, what am I going to have for lunch and what's for dinner? And I got to go pick up the kids. It's not about that. It's becoming more centrally located where you are. You're not getting information. The second part is, though, asking the universe, asking the field, asking God, if you want to talk about that. It's asking, show me. You wake up in the morning, you meditate for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, and then you say, whatever I am to learn today that is going to raise my consciousness. You could even do it that way. To raise my consciousness, to make me more aware of who I am and who I am becoming. Show me. And then you watch what synchronicity comes in that day. What do people start to talk about that maybe you hear it 3 times in 2 days? It's that way that the universe converses with us. But we have to engage with it. We have to ask the questions. We have to say, here I am, show me, talk to me, tell me something, and it doesn't mean that you're going to hear a voice in your head. It could be that maybe if you're visual, you might be shown a red shoe, an apple. You might be shown something. You might have a visual of something else. It's for you to ask the questions or for you to go inside to say, what does that mean? What does that mean to me now? How can that be helpful to me now? you develop the communication skills with your guidance system and with the universe so that your consciousness raises.
Mm, mm, mm. I had a thought when it comes to going back to our first initial conversation when it comes to beliefs. And what happens when one doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, or doesn't have a lot of self-worth, and they end up actually asking those questions to other people, to their friends, to their family members? How is it? How does actually one actually dodges the fact that if I actually ask this question to a certain person, and I put this person on the pedestal, and everything they say is all right, how do I actually avoid actually taking their beliefs and putting them within myself, and actually disregarding the thing of actually my values or what I actually stand? How do I avoid that? I'm not quite sure
Well,
if you got my
you
question.
have to take a look at, are you even doing it? Right? You have to be you have to be at that place that and these are followers, right? That there's people that, whether their woundedness in childhood or whatever they're bringing in, they need to follow something because they don't trust themselves. And trusting yourself is really a whole other part of consciousness raising. Trusting yourself that what you know to be the truth. Doesn't mean that everybody else needs to know that. That means that you know for you what is the best for you is in your truth. And finding a tool for that so that you disengage from what's being told to you. You don't do the following as much as you investigate outside of that. Like that's the biggest thing. If somebody tells you that it's this way, this way, and this way, and you start to question that, what kind of answers do you get, right, from that person? Do they become bigger to hold you back? Do they say that you're wrong? Like, don't question me. Like, where are they coming from in that possibly control place of having you follow them? So that's one way. But a tool, and they could start with very minimal. Like I'll have people take medicine cards, and ask a question. So it has to do with animals. Medicine cards are animal pictures, and there's a book that goes with it. So, ask a question and an animal, pull a card, see what it says. Those type things, kinesiology is another one. Pendulum is another one. You have to find your niche of where the tool is so that you can use it as a method to get you disengaged from somebody or something that is telling you certain things. And where is your will? When you talk about following people, where is your will? Is it just to surrender? And this could be a past life, right? It could be a past life where you have surrendered yourself over and over again to somebody, to some form of, a cult, a religion. You have turned yourself over to that, and you're here this lifetime to disengage from that. That's a possibility, but you have to know or be willing to know that maybe there's something other than what you're listening to.
Mm, 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 mm. Going back to past lives, and you touched on something that actually piqued interest onto me, and you spoke about past lives and actually being here. You never know, being here actually trying to resolve some unfinished business. One of the things that you mentioned. How do you recognize that you are here to actually do that thing, that certain thing? How do you recognize that? And how does one recognize that they've been here before?
Well, I look at the people that come to me for assistance in understanding that, right? And it would mean that they feel like they've exhausted their resources in what they know to be true. Some people already believe in incarnation, and that's not an issue. But if they don't, they've gone to doctors, or they've been in therapy, or they've done other things that where they want to break free from, where they want to change the pattern or the belief, or where they want to get healthier, it isn't working. It hasn't pinpointed it. It hasn't changed anything. The energy hasn't changed around it. So it's not like, oh, that was all bad or that didn't work. It probably worked on some level, right? But then it's the next stage or something that they might say, well, I just read a book on incarnation or lives between lives, and I don't understand it, but let me get more information about it. That's how they come to it. Or there's people that are raised with that, or they have a deep belief in incarnation. So they pursue things that have to do with incarnation rather than just what's happening in this life. But there's plenty that happens in this life. You know what I mean? Like going back to the past lives is a piece of it for some people. But there's so much tracking that can be done in this life to clear whatever you're dealing with in present day that will make a difference in the present day. So when I work, I track. You bring in something and you say, I have an issue with this person in my life. Well, okay, so let's just find out who that person represents. I track it back to whoever that is. Maybe it's mom, dad, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a sibling. It doesn't really matter. This is the circumstances back then. Do you see how it relates to present day? Yes. Let's fix back then. Let's have a conversation about what needs to happen back then so that it fixes your relationship present day. And it works, because when you remove the hindrance, when you remove the woundedness, the trauma, if it's trauma, back at another time in this life, it shifts your consciousness right now. You don't look at the person that way. You don't feel the same way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it actually does. It is quite interesting. And definitely, I didn't look at it when it came to past lives. And as I've said earlier, that it's something that I tend to have interest when it comes to such conversations, because we are taught this side of modalities, how to actually track our in a way our lives, and really finding our purpose, not actually knowing that, for the fact that spirituality, and in terms of actually finding out about our past lives and actually doing that unfinished business, and not realizing that, I feel like, in a way of realizing that it really goes back to the whole part of identity. And that's, I don't know how I feel about that, but that's how I see it. And in terms of connecting with the divine when it comes to spirituality, what are some ways to connect with their higher power? How can people cultivate a sense of spirituality even if they don't follow a particular religion?
Well, let me just address something that you brought up about past lives, because it's not just the trauma or the unfinished business. You bring in the gifts. So maybe you were more creative in another lifetime. Maybe you were a shaman in another lifetime. It doesn't mean that you're going to be, Cleopatra or anything, but, you bring in these aspects. You bring in these aspects of who you were back then, and just knowing that, feeling that, understanding the dynamics of what you went through in that lifetime and bring the gifts through is the other most positive place. You're not just healing something. You're bringing something into this lifetime that integrates with you, energetically integrates with you, so that you can claim it more. Now, what are you going to do? You were a shaman back then. If you bring it into here, what are you interested in? Well, I'm interested in, crystals, and I'm interested in this. And, I like to travel to South America. Great. Do it. Right? Do it. So that you start to bring that energy forward. Are you going to be a shaman this lifetime? You don't have to be. You just need to bring the energy forward of something that is for you. So when you talk about getting to your question of, how do you connect? We're back to willingness. Are you willing to connect? Do you even believe that there's something outside of yourself to connect to? And when you do that, tools can be one way to do that, to give you assurance, for you to start to trust that there's something else that's communicating with you. It's your innate wisdom, right? Or your guidance system. Meditation is huge, but it's that meditation of disengaging you, like even shutting everything down, right? Going off the internet, closing your phones down, giving yourself 20 minutes a day to just be. Not where you have to think you have to look at this or that, or I have to make a phone call or whatever. Just be. Walking meditation is good for some people that can't calm their mind down. Being out in nature and just holding, going by a stream and watching the clear water, holding a leaf, go hug a tree. It doesn't really matter. It's you getting up and out of your normal routine to be in a more mindful state, to be in a more resonant state with peace, the calmness within, when we're not bombarded with all the chaos. And that begins the connection. Prayer. For some people, prayer. But don't pray for other people all the time. Ask for what you need, right? But like this, seeding the field is another thing. The quantum field, which is around all of us, when we seed the field through intention. I would like this. It's like that figure eight, that lazy figure eight, or the infinity symbol. You take it around your heart, you put through intention that this is what I want. I visualize my next job coming up. I visualize whatever it is that you want to seed that field with, and you let it go. You don't control it. You don't drown it. You don't take it to the place where you're trying to get every little thing out of it. It needs to happen this way on this date, blah, 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 blah. That's not how the field works. You plant a seed in it of what you want, and then you wait till it comes back. You wait for the synchronicity. You wait for the development of that seed to give you and a lot of times when you visualize, when you plant a seed, what comes back is much greater and bigger than what you planted. Because you're not limiting it. You don't put any limitations in it. You just hand it over to the universe or God or your guidance system. You hand it over, you plant that seed, and then you wait. Patience is great, and you'll get a lot more back, is my experience in working with people.
And I keep loving in terms of mentioning this, the fact that you are not actually guided by a certain, you don't limit people in terms of believing what they want to believe. You actually, your guiding system in terms of you believe in God, you believe in a certain religion, because I'm someone that becomes easily irritated when it comes to people actually shoving. Again, this is something that I mentioned earlier, shoving it down in towards you and telling you that this is the only way. You can't actually you can't find healing if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in the universe, if you don't believe in this certain religion.
No, I mean, how is that going to work for anybody? Because we're all separate beings in a unified field. But we all have different ways that our souls have come through this. We all have different beliefs. And you have to work with what the person believes, not shove all you'll get is resistance. And then where's that go? There's no healing in that.
Definitely. And to actually, in terms of, and I'm seeing the time, we almost out of time. Final question towards the part, in terms of actually not actually final question, but actually our last, I would say, topic or subtopic. I'm not quite sure. So, as afterlife experience in terms of you've been speaking about in terms of past lives. So, can you share your insight into the afterlife experience? What have you learned about the nature of the consciousness and the transition after death?
In the past life experiences, so there's consciousness in in every lifetime, right? It depends on at what level. I mean, you could have been Neanderthal at some point, and now you're not, hopefully, or that's even on, I think it's even on the ancestry that, it comes up 1% Neanderthal. So we're still doing that. But that consciousness is constantly desiring to grow. We desire to grow as organisms, as, as human beings. We want, I believe, truly believe that everybody in some way wants to be more than where they are when they started out. Maybe they're not capable of it. Maybe they're too wounded because of it, but there is a desire of nature. Nature fills voids, right? An open field doesn't stay an open field after many years, right? So it's nature tends to fill the void. And I believe and have experienced that in past lives or whatever, we have a certain consciousness that has grown through each lifetime, through various different experiences that we have set out prior to incarnation. It's not that we know in detail because we get choice once we get here, right? But we may set up we want to learn this in this lifetime. I haven't experienced that yet. And we can't judge others for what they might want to experience. If a soul comes in and wants to experience a health issue, that they know the potential is that by age 5, they may not be here. They may die. Who are we to say that needs to happen? Because maybe that effect of that child passing influences the people around him or her. And do they open up in a way in their consciousness? Like we can't choose for people or judge them of why they're here. But I just know that the consciousness continues to evolve into wanting more for it, which is really wanting more for the soul level.
Quite. In a way, it's something interesting, and I believe that in everything that you've said here, and actually have trying to process it, all of it, and actually definitely will actually go back and listen to this episode just to actually grasp some things that you spoke about. And I believe that it goes back to every time you hear some new information, and it becomes so fascinating. And especially when it comes to in terms of afterlife experiences, it's something that we are taught to actually not talk about. And these are some kind of, I would say, uncomfortable conversation. But in a way, some religions don't actually want you to talk about it. And
No.
for example, and again, my next question is one of those questions that in some religions it's something, if you do this thing, actually you are not being, I would say, Christian enough, or certain thing you are not allowed to talk with people that have gone. And before I get to in that, in terms of actually tracking your ancestors, that thing of ancestry, how can I put this question? How sure are you about it? How accurate is it when it comes to that?
When it comes to ancestry?
Yes.
And your question is how sure I am about consciousness?
Not sure per se, but how accurate is it?
How accurate is it?
Yes.
Well, we carry genetically, so we have that. It's a piece of our makeup, right? So we carry things genetically, we carry things past life and soul level. And then they all get combined into this particular form. But you can change your genetics. If you can. Yeah, I mean, have people look up epigenetics, that's part of the consciousness changing of how you can, how you can change what you've come in with. A lot of times changing what you've come in with is really the perception. Perception is a lot, right? Of how we view our genetics. What do we do to heal it? Is there ways to move the perception of our genetics in a way that would be more healing? Okay. Because if we heal the internal dialogue that we have, the internal belief systems that we have, the perception that we have. A lot of times, if we heal that, things change. Going back even into your genetic history of changing things energetically for your ancestors. We're all energy. And if we know that, if we believe that, if we utilize that, when you move energy here in a conscious way, in a way that it's expansive, it changes things prior to and in the future.
Mm.
It just is the way it is.
It's quite interesting, and definitely it's an information that I wasn't aware of as I mentioned to you towards you in terms of when it comes to spirituality and how these things actually work. And I try by any means to actually in terms of tell myself that I should do a certain research, I should do this and this and this and this. And one of the people that actually speak more about this is Samaras. And I try by any means I watched his interview with Chris Williamson, and also he speaks a lot about mindfulness. And so it's mindfulness meditation. So it's quite something that I believe that I have to go back in terms of do more research on spirituality and not be shocked as I am shocked the way I am today. And it's something that as I've said, I'm still processing. So towards in terms of my last question towards you as before I ask this question. So how can connecting with loved ones who have passed on provide comfort and healing? Can you share examples of how mediumship has helped people cope with grief and loss?
So, I mean, I don't pursue mediumship. It comes to me. So I'll be working with somebody and I'll say, oh, there's your father here. Or there's a man that looks like this that's here. And, he has a message for you. What is his name? And we define who that might be. And then there's usually something that is important for them, or they want to support the person, or they want to be forgiven, or there's something that needs to move for them, not just for them to move on, but something that was incomplete. It's a lot about incomplete stuff. What do they want to address? Are they saying, hey, I'm back in your life in a different way, but I'd like to be part of your support system. Lean on me when it comes to your child because I'm watching over them, whatever the message is. But it's not something that I go and, say that, I'm a medium and I go out for people. They show up. They show up in the course of investigating the person that I'm working with and what comes in, because I'm open up to auditory. I get sensory information. I get sometimes even the night before I'm working with somebody, I'll get a piece of information that comes in that I don't know who it's for, but it's for the person that I'm working with the next day. I just want to say something. Do not use the word should. Should. If you're saying I should do this and I should do that, it is not the best for you. I will tell you, because then you're not listening to what do you want to do? Really, that's what meditation hopefully brings the person. What do you want to do? What's going to make your heart sing? What's going to calm your mind? What do you want to do? Not what you should do or you think that you have to do or somebody told you that you had to do it. It's not, you're being led and it's not by you.
And again, it's something that and a lot of information that I've heard, and to my surprise that these things are things that I practice within my culture in terms of speaking to people that have passed away in this life. And whenever we do some ceremonies, we do these things. So I just want to say thanks so much for being here. Thank you so much for the information. Thank you so much for your insights and being able to reach out to me and actually have this conversation and definitely what I believe when it comes to podcast. Every time I have a guest, I actually look look in a different eye, have a different perspective, not actually enforce my own perspective of saying no, I believe in this, so this thing that you're saying is wrong, but actually welcoming it, of
Yeah.
saying, oh, flip, that this was actually the reason why it's like this, the reason why actually people view it this way, and not and live, I would say, the judgment at the door, and not have that sense of I'm always right and everyone is always wrong. And I believe that most of the people actually have that sense of saying that no, you are wrong, I am right, and not having that perspective. And I feel like the more you allow perspective to actually be part of the conversation, the more you actually realize that you have learned a lot from the conversation, and you need to look at that point of view a little bit, not actually not being it actually in a way, how can I put it, overcome your own perspective, but also allowing it to see if it does align with your own perspective. And probably you might see that that your perspective was wrong, and you might realize, oh, flip, and acknowledge that you were wrong.
And the other thing I just want to say, as you're talking, it dawns on me that the people that you interview on your podcast are all planting seeds in you for you to be discerning. Do they grow or do they not? Do they fit you? Do they? But it's not the shoulds and the should be's. It's the, what ifs. What if that is true? And then investigating that, be curious about it, and then see where your consciousness goes.